Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Cash That. This is your host, Joe Dellera. This episode is once again brought to you by our good friends at Rhythm. Rhythm is the #1 AI betting tool in the market. Guess what? We got Masters bets for you. I really know nothing about betting golf, but we have all of the projections here and you can use it. You've got top 10, top 20, top 5, and winner projections. You can get it for free with the link down here in the bio. I'm going to give you a little bit of a teaser. My #1 projection on this for top 10 is Ty Hatton plus 350. That's my #1 projection on Rhythm right now. I've got a 30.4% difference to market. And you can get this for a variety of different bets and help you have an idea. We all know we want to have a little bit of action on the Masters. So why not be a little bit more informed and use Rhythm to help you with your betting process? So check out all the recommendations with the link down here in the bio. You're not going to regret it. All right, so we are in the dog days of the NBA season. I feel like we've been saying this a little bit longer lately, and it's a little bit chaotic. So not only do we have the absolute shit show of a tanking fest, whatever is going on right now, we also have a variety of different things going on in the coaching realm, in the front office space. So the big news was obviously that Michael Malone is out as the Denver Nuggets head coach. Also, Calvin Booth out as the GM of the Denver Nuggets. Massive, massive decision to make, especially kind of at this juncture in the season. Just is like a really bizarre decision to make, at least at this point, right? And I think that when you kind of unpack a little bit of it, you're like, does this make a lot of sense? So obviously I really got the chance to listen to, and I was excited about it because there's a couple things. #1, super excited about the fact that Zach Lowe is back. He's got the Lowe show. If you're going to listen to any show besides this one, you got to listen to that one. It's just, I think that he is the best in terms of talking about not only the X's and O's, but also talking about like some of the structure things around it, some of the awards things, some of the narratives, and weaving it in with like real basketball analysis and what he thinks. And I love it. I think it's instrumental for like my betting process. Honestly, like I love listening to that podcast, and it's really cool because he just had his first episode out earlier in the week, but then he had our good guy, he had Matt Moore on to talk about the Denver Nuggets firing of Michael Malone and Calvin Booth. So they talked about this. Matt wrote an article for the Denver Dig, and it's really like a fascinating thing because there's a lot of it that, you know, kind of went with how the defense isn't good. There were some issues with the communication there. There's some issues with the front office and ownership refusing to pay, like, and go into the tax, like paying for KCP, for example. So like a number of different things kind of going on. And there were some rough losses lately. Obviously, the loss to the Timberwolves, brutal. And, you know, there's some issue in terms of like who's keeping players accountable. And one of the things Matt talked about to a degree was like how KCP, regardless of like how good you think KCP is, he was used as like a leader on the defensive side of the ball. He was playing meaningful minutes. He could call players out. And as good as Christian Brown is, and Christian Brown is like a Denver guy, he's young. He's 23 and he doesn't have the like footing, or so to speak, to be that type of vocal player for the Denver Nuggets that you need sometimes when you're having some of this defensive slippage. So sure, there's probably a couple more things like kind of going on here. And the thought is that Jokic obviously like would not ask for somebody to be fired, probably was consulted to a degree, but he has been somebody that's frustrated with Denver's defensive effort this year, which is basically bottom third of the league. And we've seen it now recently where Jokic is putting up these insane games, just monster performances, and Denver's losing. And that has to not only be frustrating, but it also shows some of the shortcomings that the team has overall. And it's when Turvey and I talked about this on the podcast on Buckets over the weekend. And we talked about how essentially Denver, we think, is a team that's susceptible to maybe losing in the first round. It's possible they could even slip into the play-in. So there's a number of issues here with Denver. And then when you look at the situation even this season, because of the contracts that they signed their players to, a lot of them weren't eligible to be traded. Essentially, the only player outside of Jokic that was like a primary rotation piece that had meaningful salary to trade, because that's important, was Michael Porter Jr. And ownership did not want to trade Michael Porter Jr. I like Michael Porter Jr. I think Michael Porter Jr. is very good, but the contract that he is owed is probably not one that is optimal, maybe. And he's the piece that you could use to trade and get like another legitimate star. We still are in a situation where, like Jamal Murray, extremely inconsistent, hurt often. And you don't like to say, that certain players are like lazy or anything like that, but you do question because of the level of, I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where the players that often are in the gym, putting in the most time to stay healthy, working on some of the stability, working with the training staff, working with their health and fitness things in the off season, they're the ones that, I don't want to say avoid injury, but they put themselves in a position to not have some of these freak injuries or these reoccurring injuries, because they do keep themselves in tip-top shape. And when you look at Denver, you have a guy like Jamal Murray who is consistently hurt or not at 100%. And when he did have that burst in like the February type of window, he was unbelievable. And you go, okay, maybe this team can make something here. The problem is he's again hurt. And there was some conversation about the fact that he might not even be healthy for the playoffs here. So when you kind of look at all of these situations and all the scenarios here where there wasn't anybody to really trade, the defense was abysmal, and there were contract negotiations between ownership, Booth, and Malone in the offseason, and they couldn't get there. It's not super surprising that they go, well, we think that there's something better for this team. And then there was an interview by ownership talking about how they think that this could maybe function as like a little bit of a kick in the ass for the team, a rallying call. But I think that it's also hard to say that when you fire the coach that helped get you to an NBA championship, and you're doing it in the last week of the regular season. So I have a lot of questions for Denver. You have to question what their steps are moving forward. And I think that there's a lot up in the air for this Denver Nuggets team. At the end of the day, though, there is one thing about Jokic in particular that you've seen throughout not only his career, but like even some of the things that you see with like the Olympics, with the Serbian national team. If you watch like Quarter Gold, you see that level of leadership. You see the kind of like rallying cry. I do think that there is going to be a little bit of a push together, like collectively, right, for the rest of the season. And I think that we're going to see some big performances out of Jokic as he tries to rally the team and get things going like as good as it can get. So I think it's going to be tough. I think you have to temper their expectations in the playoffs. But now I wonder if the number maybe is going to have moved too far in the opposite direction, where you say, well, maybe we're underrating this team a little bit because they still have the best player in the world. Maybe there's a situation where, the matchup's good, whatever, and they can kind of overcome some of the difficulties. Also, from like an on-court perspective, they really didn't take a lot of threes. And as good as Jokic is, as good as the Jokic-Murray pick and roll had been, you set yourself to be at a disadvantage from a math perspective. And I think that's one of the issues too. It's like Michael Porter Jr. did not really see a significant uptick in threes this year, did not see a significant uptick in volume from beyond the arc, where that was something we were anticipating based on KCP getting moved. Christian Brown's not like the greatest three-point shooter. You figured he was going to be somebody that stepped up and expanded some of that volume there for Denver. Instead, you see Jokic doing it, but you really could have seen both of them doing it, and you still would maybe only be about league average. So couple things to consider, some things to look at, but we're going to touch on that game in a little bit because I do have some best bet angles for it. Additionally, before we get too into the slate, I wanted to touch on the fact that a lot of the plays that I have are kind of coming out a little bit later right now. I'll maybe get an opener here and there, but a lot of the plays are coming out a little bit later. And as a result, it's harder to get them published in the same way. I'm not posting at the same clip on Twitter right now or X, and like a lot of it's going just directly to the Discord, and then I'm logging into the Action app pretty much right before tip. In part, it's because I have like new law job things going on, so that's affecting some of the timing, but also because of the schedule right now. And these teams, there are so many teams that literally have nothing to play for. We just saw the Phoenix Suns get eliminated. That has essentially locked in now who is going to be in the Western Conference play-in tournament, the Eastern Conference, or at least at the bottom of the tournament in the Kings and the Mavericks. So we have some certainty there. And even at the top of the conference, that's getting to be pretty firm. In the Eastern Conference, the majority of it is solid. There's a little bit of flexibility in like who has home court, who doesn't have home court. But for the most part, we know who's playing who, and where is everybody's going to be situated in terms of the seeding. So these teams have different motivations. I think a lot of it's baked into the line. I do think that there is some opportunity to maybe find a spot or two early where you can take advantage of something that's maybe being missed. But at the end of the day, a lot of these bets, a lot of these lines are super fluid, and I don't want to put us in a situation where we bet on something and then you're like, that was not great. Like somebody got ruled out. There was a random scratch on, even maybe it's not even the team that you bet on, it's on the other team. There's extra blowout potential, what have you. So we're keeping the lines a little bit closer to play. So again, if you want, I'm going to put a little bit of a free trial down for the huddle in the down here in the bio. Make sure you hop in, grab that. It'll help you get the best line still, regardless of when I'm posting it. And I think that's one of the most important things. And obviously, if you're enjoying this content, make sure that you like, subscribe, give us a rate, review on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're getting your podcasts. But let's talk about this slate. So the biggest game on the slate is not the first game that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk real quickly about the Sixers versus the Wizards. The Wizards are 1.5 point home dogs. Wizards are on a back-to-back. I don't really think it matters too much. The spot that I do like, Adam Bona has been incredible for Philadelphia. I do think that that's probably a decent spot for him against this Wizards team. I also think it's a pretty good spot for Alex Sarr again. So curious to see where some of his lines come out, but this Sixers team is not very good. Philly is highly incentivized to lose this game, which I think they're going to have to really try to do against this Washington Wizards team. When we look at Tankathon, the Wizards got a little bit of catching up to do on the Jazz. They're 1 loss behind Utah, and they're 2 losses ahead of Charlotte. So they have a little bit of wiggle room in terms of the 2, but not a ton in terms of trying to get to the 1. They need to lose again. And for Philadelphia, they pick is top 6 protected. Right now, they're pretty entrenched in the top 6. They have the 5th right now. They're 23-56. They shouldn't have a ton of difficulty losing this. They've lost 12 in a row right now. They are really, really bad and tanking really, really hard. So it hasn't really mattered who they're playing on a nightly basis. They are doing everything in their power to lose. I will look at Adam Bona, and I will look at Alex Sarr. I think that Bona's lines maybe are a little bit too high. We were on him last game at like 22.5 PRA, and we're looking at 24.5 right now. There's 25.5 only on Sleeper and Underdog though, so we're gonna have to see just how real those numbers are. But that's what I would look for in that game. Next, we have the Celtics versus the Magic, and the Celtics opened as pretty significant favorites. They were 3.5 point favorites. This is flipped all the way the other way, and Boston is a 3.5 point underdog. Given the fact that they just beat the New York Knicks in overtime, everybody played relatively meaningful minutes except for, I think, Al Horford sat. It wouldn't be shocking if Boston sat a ton of players in this matchup against the Magic. Also, Jaylen Brown didn't look great. I question how many minutes he's going to play, or if he even plays at all, because he really couldn't get anything going against the Knicks. And then I'm trying to look up how many games so he really didn't get anything going against the Knicks. And I think part of the issue was, he seemed to be dealing with, that continuous knee issue that he's had. He only played 22 minutes, wasn't super effective, 6 points, 5 rebounds, 2 of 8 from the field. So I'm curious to see what exactly they're doing with him. I do think that in part, it might have to do with the fact that they're trying to get him to 65 games. You need to play 65 games in order to make some of these All-NBA teams. I think that Jaylen Brown is probably in line to be an All-NBA player this year, maybe like a 3rd team All-NBA. It would not shock me. Boston has, let's see, how many games left does Boston have? Boston has, I think it's 3 games left, so he needs to play really in all 3 games. It wouldn't shock me if he plays that like 20-minute stretch again. Given that, there might be some value on playing some Jaylen Brown unders with the idea that he is just getting out there to play that many minutes, not do too much, not get hurt, but maybe try to get it going a little bit. But also they're going to be focused primarily on what's going to go on in the playoffs. So just something to kind of consider with this prop and with Jaylen Brown anyway. Now, let's look at the Lakers versus the Mavericks, because this is the game I think everybody wants to talk about. We've got the Lakers are on a back-to-back, and Luka got ejected. So now we've got pissed off Luka in a matchup against the Dallas Mavericks, where he's probably going to be even more pissed off, to be honest with you. And it's a home game for the Dallas Mavericks. This is going to be Luka's return to Dallas, first time back. I think that this is going to be an insanely high Luka usage game. At the same time, it feels really fucking chalky. His prop is up to, I'm seeing 29. I'll double check right now, but I was seeing, no, now we're up to 30.5 points for Luka. I have significant concerns with this prop. I am looking at this. I would love to bet it. I think that maybe he goes over it. I can't get there. His player prop, the last couple games for points, has been at like 25.5, 26.5. And I know that some guys like step up when they play these matchups that are like emotionally charged, but it's such a swing from where he's been seeing his points prop line at. I'd rather just sit it out. I don't want to bet an under. I think that you either need to sit it out, or like if you want to play it, just pop it in a parlay, do something fun with it. If you want to make a minus EV decision, it's probably good for your sportsbook health to maybe bet an over on Luka and just hammer something super chalky. I think that this is a great Austin Reeves matchup. I would like to bet Austin Reeves over like 18.5 points or like 23.5, 24.5 PA. I think that with all the extra attention that Luka's going to get, it's going to make things a little bit easier for Reeves. Also, Reeves is going to be able to generate a couple extra assists, dishing to Luka, dishing to LeBron here. I think it's going to be a great spot. On the flip side, too, you've got Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis probably feels some type of way about this matchup, too. His points prop is at 25.5. I would be much more interested in an Anthony Davis like PR prop where he's at 25.5 points and 9.5 rebounds. I am so much more interested in something Anthony Davis in this regard than Luka Doncic, I think. If you look at the Lakers' size, I think it makes it a little bit of an easier matchup for Anthony Davis. I think that he's going to be able to take some advantage here. And the minutes have been roughly there. He's playing about 30 minutes. I will say, though, now that we know that the Mavericks are essentially sitting in the playoffs, and they will be at the 9-10 spot based on their like some of the tiebreakers and the fact that Phoenix is going to lose today. I think, and their only flexibility is really to just get a home game. I don't think that they're going to be pushing Anthony Davis any type of extended minutes unless they really feel like they need to. There really isn't a huge reason to do so, even in this emotionally charged spot against the Lakers. So his lines are elevated. No real reason to like force the issue, or so to speak. So I think this is going to be a really exciting game. I would definitely lean towards the Lakers in this spot, even though they are on a back-to-back. I think that they're going to get plenty of opportunity from Luka here. The big question is going to be, are they going to sit LeBron on a back-to-back? Does that open things up a little bit more for Luka? Does that open things up a little bit more for Austin Reeves? I think that they will both wind up playing just based on the importance of this game. This is a game where the Lakers really need it for jockeying for playoff positioning. They are not out of the woods in terms of the play-in right now, but I do think that the line is a little bit long at Dallas. It opened at Dallas like +5, and now we're already seeing it get bet down to like Dallas +4. So it wouldn't shock me to see this close maybe at one possession. At that point, I would probably like the Lakers. The Hornets and the Raptors are playing. Both these teams suck. I got nothing on this game. I think that, maybe you could look for Mark Williams, maybe you could look for Jakob Poeltl, but I'm extremely disinterested in this game. Looking at Tankathon, Toronto is at 29-50. They're pretty much stuck at the 7. So I do think that there's a level of intrigue for me here with what they're going to do play style wise. Because they can't really move too much from where they are, they basically tanked as much as they can up until this point of the regular season, that I think that they could actually play their players like a typically normal amount of minutes. There's really no more flexibility that they have as long as they lose basically one, unless they lose out. And then I think Brooklyn would have to win out, which is highly unlikely considering their last game of the season is against the Knicks, and the Knicks might actually need that game. So I think that that's a problem for Brooklyn. Also, looking at it the other way, the Spurs could maybe catch them, but the Spurs would also have to lose out, and Toronto would have to win a game or would have to not lose any games, which is also unlikely. So I think that Toronto is going to be able to play their like normal or closer to normal type of minutes rotation. And because of that, I think that there actually might be a little bit of value on some of these player props. I'm gonna have to dig in a little bit, but like if we looked at Scotty Barnes, for example, he's been playing minutes in like the upper teens over the past couple of weeks. I do wonder if now, because of their circumstances in the tanking scheme, are these minutes going to open up a little bit more? Is he going to play maybe a couple more minutes? And a guy like Jakob Poeltl, whose points prop is at 12.5, he's somebody that maybe you could look to too and say, all right, well, like maybe he's not going to play only like 25 minutes. Maybe he plays closer to 30 minutes a game in this spot because it doesn't really matter. And when you play Charlotte pretty much always has a big on the floor. So to me, I think maybe I would look for a Jakob Poeltl prop here at 12.5 points against Jusuf Nurkic and Mark Williams, etc. So maybe that's something I would look for, or even like RJ Barrett. He has been playing over his last 10 games. He's been playing minutes at about like the mid 20s. I wonder if because of where they're situated now, does he see a little bit more of an uptick against the Charlotte Hornets team to try to lock them in, get them ready for the offseason, but also give them a little bit of extra run here. Next, we have the Heat versus the Bulls. The Bulls are 2.5-point home dogs. Looking at the standings right now, this is a relatively important game. It's mainly important because these two teams are potentially able to get out of the 9-10. The Bulls and the Heat are tied right now in the loss column. The winner of this game would essentially get like the tiebreaker over them. They also would have a shot at getting to the 8, which is, I think, an extremely important distinction in the play-in tournament because you get two cracks at it, obviously. The one issue here, though, is this is also probably like the most likely 9-10. Do you want to show anything meaningful here? Do you want to play your guys a little bit of extended run to try to get out of the 9-10 and maybe get up into the 8? And what does that mean for player props? I would think that means we're going to see a little bit of like extended run from some of the primary pieces for both of these teams. I think that you're going to see Bam Adebayo play maybe some extra minutes. I think you're going to see Josh Giddey come back and play some extra minutes. I think that you're going to see Andrew Wiggins play some more meaningful minutes. Maybe Kobe White playing some longer minutes, and Tyler Hero as well. So I do think that there's a lot of opportunity here for a number of players to see minutes in like the upper piece where they normally wouldn't, based on the fact that it's such a difference in leverage if you're able to get out of the 9-10. And if you lose this game, you essentially have zero chance of getting out of the 9-10. Whereas if you win this game, not only do you give yourself the opportunity to get out of the 9-10, but you pretty much also, at a minimum, lock up the 9 seed, which gives you the home game in the 9-10 matchup against probably the team that you just beat. So I'm very interested to see how these teams handle this spot, but I do think that we're going to see a little bit of a longer rotation for these players. This is an important game for both of these teams. That's my thought. We have the Blazers versus the Jazz. Next, the Jazz are 5.5-point dogs. Utah's just got to lose, and they just keep losing. They've lost 9 in a row, and I don't really think that anything's going to change there. The craziest thing is that Portland now is a little bit like incentivized to lose. They can't make the playoffs. They can't make the postseason. And they are tied in the loss column now with the Phoenix Suns, whose pick is going to the Houston Rockets. So I think that there is some flexibility here for Portland. At the same time, it's going to be hard to out-tank Utah, who has been doing a legendary job of tanking here. So I think this is going to be a game to stay away from. I'm not interested in betting on a player prop in this game. And I'm really not interested in the side either. Next, we have the Nuggets versus the Kings. The Kings are 3-point underdogs now. This line flipped where the Nuggets were the Kings were favored at open, and now this has moved all the way that way. I like Jokic over 21.5 rebounds plus assists. He's been awesome against Sabonis this season. He's got 2 triple doubles against him. And Sabonis has also been amazing against Jokic. 28, 14, and 6, 23, 19, and 8 against the Denver Nuggets this season. I think that I will be looking to parlay maybe like a double, triple double here for the two of them. I'm going to want to see what the odds are. Jokic, I'm seeing like barely above plus 100. And then Sabonis, I'm seeing at about like 7 plus 750. I think this is going to be an awesome game. I definitely like the Nuggets here. The Kings are mostly locked into the 9. A couple things would have to kind of go wrong for them. But even if we look at some of the playoff probabilities here for them in the Western Conference, they basically have to be the 9 seed. They have a 62% probability of being the 9 seed, and Dallas is about 80% to be the 10 seed. Dallas, I think, has a tough spot against the Lakers tonight as well. I do think that this is a spot that favors Sacramento overall in terms of them keeping the 9. At the same time, this game is hugely important for Denver for a variety of different reasons. I think obviously number 1 is the standings. Number 2 is the culture surrounding the team after this Malone firing, the Booth firing, and they're really trying to stay out of the play-in tournament as well. And if you look at Denver, they have about Dunks and Threes has them at about a 42% chance to be in the play-in tournament in one way, shape, or form. So fairly significant, and definitely something that they're going to be wanting to avoid. So I'm going to be looking at this. I think that Denver is the play, and I like Jokic over on his RA. Then we've got the Spurs versus the Warriors. Warriors are 15-point favorites. It's a back-to-back for both teams. I think that this could be a good spot for Stephon Castle in terms of his RA. I know that he's kind of like gunning for a triple-double a little bit, so I think that that's something to maybe keep an eye on. It's also it's wild right now how close these teams are in the Western Conference. Teams 3 through 8 are 2 losses apart. The Lakers have 31 losses. The Clippers, Nuggets, Warriors, Warriors and Grizzlies rather have 32. Minnesota has 33. What a brutal loss for Minnesota against the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks went on like a 35-8 run in the fourth quarter. Just absolutely inexcusable to lose that game, given the stakes, given the score for Minnesota. And that might be like, in a way, the way the Western Conference has been, that could be the nail in the coffin for them to be in the play-in tournaments. Really, really fascinating set of development there. But I do think that even though it's a back-to-back for Golden State, I think that they're conditioned well enough, and this is a pretty soft game against a team that has still been playing teams tough, but they're a little bit more incentivized to lose. I would be looking at Castle RA. I think it's a good spot for him against the Warriors team that's a little bit smaller, plays with some decent pace, and obviously is on a back-to-back as well. I would look at Castle RA. The Thunder are playing the Suns. This is a back-to-back for both teams. The Suns are 12.5-point underdogs. They're eliminated now from the playoffs. This is just a completely meaningless game for both teams. This game just doesn't matter, like, at all. The Suns don't have their pick, so they're not even really incentivized to lose. This game is just completely meaningless. I would be shocked to see these teams play extended minutes. I do wonder if maybe we're going to get an opportunity for some Booker unders if the line is just sky high. I think it's a bad matchup for him anyway against the Oklahoma City Thunder. But if the line is kind of set off of how he's been performing lately, we might get a good opportunity on an under just because he's not going to have to play those minutes. It's over. The dream is over. And then finally, we have a spot between the Rockets and the Clippers. It's a back-to-back for the Clippers. I think it was particularly interesting that Kawhi Leonard sat on Tuesday night against the San Antonio Spurs, and then now is going to suit up in this game where the Clippers are 5.5-point favorites. Looking at the injury, we need to look at the injury report for this game real quick. So that way I can keep you informed of what exactly is going on there in that game. So Kawhi Leonard should play. He sat out the front end of the back-to-back, like I said, against the Spurs. And then now looking at this game, the Rockets have listed a number of players on the report. Şengün is questionable. Jabari Smith is questionable. Fred VanVleet is doubtful. Amen Thompson could see some monster run here. I think Tari Eason also would have an opportunity to get some run. Those are some of the players that I would be interested in. I also think that if Şengün sits, this could be a good opportunity for Zubac on a back-to-back, who has been honestly just been incredible over the back half of the season. So I would maybe look for that. I do think that the Clippers are a tough spot for the Rockets, given some of the things that they can do in the half court. But I also think that the Rockets are going to wind up sitting these guys. They don't want to show anything that they might potentially need to use in the playoffs. And that's my thought on the Wednesday slate. I will say, just please keep in mind as you move forward, there are going to be a lot of spots where you're going to look at a line and be like, what the fuck is that? Like, why? Like, that's a must bet line. And if a line looks like it's too good to be true, just consider some of the surrounding circumstances about like, why is that line there? What is the importance? What is the issue? So definitely kind of keep an eye on that. Keep your finger on the pulse of what is actually going on in the league. There's no games on Saturday. Every team is playing on Sunday. And then next week, we'll have some of the play-in tournament games. I will endeavor to have a podcast out for the play-in tournament. It kind of depends. I'm super excited for some of those playoff bets, like the leader bets, the series leader bets, the series markets. So I'm going to see like what makes the most sense. We might have some slightly different podcast times next week, but we'll be flexible with it. We'll do what we can and make sure that all the content comes out there for you. And as always, you can get the bets first in the Discord, in the Dub Club, and use the link in the bio for the free trial. So really, really excited for the playoffs to start. I feel like we've had a lot of meaningful basketball right now, but it's slightly different meaningful basketball. There's a lot of guesswork. There's a lot of things that we're trying to consider right now, but super excited for the playoffs to start. I think that we're going to have some dynamite first round matchups, and I can't wait to watch some of that basketball. It's some of the higher level basketball that we get to see, obviously. So for pods and recs, I'm going to recommend, if you want to watch something wholesome on Netflix, you can watch Love on the Spectrum. I watch it with my wife, and it's pretty wholesome, and the people are refreshingly honest. I will leave it at that. And then the other recommendation that I have is, what did I do the other day? Oh, I heated up my Chipotle bowl. I feel like whenever I get Chipotle, it's like not the hottest, like when I take it home. So I have to have vegan cheese, so I can't even use their cheese. So this is actually a great thing for me. But I put on my vegan cheese and then I heat it up, and it's so much better hot than it is at whatever temperature it is, like if I buy it at the store and I take it home. So I've been using the Chipotle. I love it. It's great. And I did enjoy, I tried the new chicken, like the Chipotle honey chicken, and I thought it was pretty good. So would also recommend that. Finally, I'm going to recommend going through your freezer and just getting rid of stuff that's like freezer burn. You might have forgotten about it. Like clean out your freezer a little bit. Me and Jenna just did it, and we were like, we're like, why is this sitting here? Like nobody's eating this. Or like this is freezer burned, or like there's just like loose stuff that fell out of some of the bags. Highly recommend it. Think it's a good idea, and it'll help kind of keep the drawers clean, keep the drawers organized. And when you're organized, that's one of the keys to betting as well. And one of the best ways to stay organized is obviously have your models. And you can get that with Rhythm for the free trial with the link in the bio. #1 AI betting tool in the market. It's got your NBA stuff. It's got some baseball. It's got golf. It's got the Masters. And you can get it for free for a week down here with the link in the bio. So make sure that you check that out. Stay organized, turn on some Netflix, and let's continue to cash that.